On today's Church TechCast questions and answers, PowerPoint to video, auxiliary video staging, and one long cable. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the ChurchTechCast.com question and answer show. These questions are pulled from the groups that I frequent during the week, and also those sent directly to me. So if you've got a question, head on over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/contact, and you can share your questions there. By the way, one of the most common questions that I get is, Paul, who do you use for your video streaming? Right now I use Church Streaming, so that makes perfect sense since I do Church Tech, Church Streaming. So if you want to take a look at what they have to offer, head on over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/church streaming. All one word, no punctuation, just the words church and streaming right after trinitydigitalmedia.com. So one thing that I love about them is they provide video bandwidth for a video podcast, which I have just launched. So if you want all the videos delivered directly to your iPhone, your Android phone, etc., you can go to trinitydigitalmedia.com/subscribe, and I've got all the list of options that you have there. And one thing that is right on the cusp of launching, they keep telling me to change just one little thing. And I did it once, and then they said, okay, that's great. Now here's this other thing. So anyway, it's the Roku channel. So if you've got a Roku, I will be appearing very, very soon in the Roku channel store under technology, one of just a few other technology channels there. So I'm really excited about that. So don't forget, if you're interested at all in church streaming, head on over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/church streaming. They've got a 1-month free trial, and I get just a little bit of money if you go with that and decide that that is your streaming provider. By the way, their customer service, second to none. A couple of the features on the site, either I'm really good at my timing or they're doing them based on suggestions I have, and you just don't get that very often. So anyway, my name is Paul Allen Clifford, and I am your host today. My website is trinitydigitalmedia.com. That's the company that provides all this free content to you. It's the company that I own. But if you want to watch live, ChurchTechCast.com will get you there. So without any further ado, let's hop into the questions. The very first one is from Brandon Kinsey on the Church Tech group on Google+. And he asks, I'm a new youth pastor and I'm blessed with a youth room. Good for you. And I'm wanting to do some sort of colored lighting that could be controlled to set up different moods. I was thinking of painting the ceiling black to help. Any suggestions or resources that I could check out? So the first thing that I would tell Brandon is don't paint the ceiling black. I'd paint it white if you want to help, because that's going to give you more surfaces to shine the lights on. If you paint the ceiling black, it's going to make the ceiling look shorter. It's going to make the room feel more claustrophobic. Now, if you're in a warehouse space, black is an okay choice. But as it turns out, he's in just a normal, like a largish but Sunday school classroom kind of space, and as such, a black ceiling is not the right choice. White is probably what I'd recommend there. For lights, if it was a really small room, you could do something like the Philips Hue LED light bulbs, which are consumer light bulbs. They're meant to go in your house, but you can control them with your iPhone and set mood lights and stuff like that. They're all Wi-Fi. So that's the low-end solution. Someone suggested American DJ lights. I haven't had a lot of success with those personally, and neither have the lighting people at my church, so I would not recommend those. I'd go for something a little bit better. Remember, you're not buying for today, you're buying for the future. So you want something that's going to last a couple years, 5 years, bare minimum. You don't want something that lasts just until the warranty is over, which might be 90 days. So that would be bad. So those are my suggestions. You're probably not going to want to go with intelligent fixtures in such a small space. You're probably going to go with traditional lights. In a small space, by the way, lighting is going to be very warm unless you go, and I mean that not color temperature, I mean that temperature, unless you go with LED lights. Now, LED lights also have the advantage of being cheap on power, cheap on maintenance, because you don't swap out the LEDs. They last for not forever, but years and years and years and years and years, and they're just cooler temperature wise. Now, they're more expensive per fixture, but in your case I think that's what you need to go for. Otherwise you're going to pay the difference in air conditioning bills even in the winter, so that could be a problem. So that's something that I would consider if I were you. Next, Matt Rickers on Church Tech. Need a quick solution. Working on a new stage install, and we decided that we want a corded solution to hook up a laptop at the stage and run the video signal back to the soundboard for presentation and other events. From my understanding, HDMI degrades and is expensive. Considering conversion to Cat5, thoughts or a different cabling method? I don't have an exact length measurement, but running up the wall and through the ceiling, I'm guessing about 300 feet or so. No one else suggested this, and I'm a little surprised, but maybe it's because analog has gotten such a bad rap recently. When it comes to a permanent install, you can't beat VGA. And by VGA, I don't mean the signal. I don't mean 640 by 480. I mean the cabling, which is actually technically RGB HV cabling. That cable is a really robust cable, and so it has plenty of bandwidth to send all the different signals that you need to send to get a great video signal. It's what we tend to use just universally, and I've done some freelancing. Well, I had a regular job back 10 years ago that all the installs we did were VGA cables, and then every spring there's a company in town that has this big symposium, and the AV company that they hires me to do some work for them, and we always use VGA because it's reliable. That's what you want. You want reliable. So in order of preference, probably what you want to do is HDSDI, which, if you have the equipment, from a cabling standpoint is easy and inexpensive. If you don't have HDSDI equipment, then the next thing that I would use is good old-fashioned RGB HV VGA cabling, and for audio I'd use an XLR. At the laptop, because that's what you said you're using, I'd use a direct box to convert the unbalanced signal to a balanced signal, send that over the over the XLR rather, and into the soundboard. So those are my top two choices of the way to do that. DVI is probably the next one that I would use. And finally, HDMI. HDMI is fine when you're hooking up a DVD player to your TV, but when you're hooking up a laptop 300 feet away to your projector, not so good. Not good at all. HDMI is built to fail. It is. It's because of the copy protection, it's built to fail, and so that's not what you want. You want something that's built to be sturdy and reliable. So I wouldn't do that. For Cat 5 solutions, Cat 5, Cat 5e, Cat 6, they're all very similar. What you want to look for is a balun. Now, it is possible to convert a video signal into something that is can be sent over an Ethernet network, but don't do that. That's going to introduce a lot of latency. For your situation, what you want is a balun, B-A-L-U-N, which is short for balance, B-A-L, unbalance, U-N. So what it does is it balances the signal, sends it over Cat 5, unbalances it back to the regular signal. A balun is, and they make them in VGA, DVI, and HDMI. And I think that that's something, when you're running cable, I'd just run a Cat 5e or a Cat 6 anyway, just to have it, because running cable is hard, so you might as well run an additional one so that should you need it. And in the future, maybe VGA is no longer supported. Well, you'll have that Cat 6 in the wall ready to go when you switch to a new laptop, etc. So that's what I'd recommend. We use baluns all the time. Now, as I said, it's not a network cable, even though it's the same type of cable. It's just converting the signals. So you need a non-stop point-to-point connection on this. We've run into a problem where we had an Ethernet jack on each location at the end on each place, and had a short Cat 5 jumper running from the Ethernet to the balun, and then from there on both ends. It didn't work at all. You would think it would work. It's a connection. It was just that little bit of signal loss that was enough to cause the system to go wonky. I said it didn't work at all. It was pink. So, in effect, that didn't work at all. It worked, it just didn't work. So, that's something else that I'd want to recommend. Now, this isn't technically church tech, but I could imagine situations like for your, let's say you were doing registrations for an event, like a retreat, and you needed to take a credit card or debit card. Maybe your church bookstore needs this. So that's why I included this. This was from the Christians in Business group on Google+. Vicky McFadden asked, do any of you use Square for processing payments? We've found a competitor we're considering for one of our businesses. Anybody familiar with plusbyems.com? I'm not an affiliate, just asking for info. Would love any feedback before we pull the trigger. And should I move this post to somewhere else? Please let me know. Okay, so I investigated EMS, which is the company that does this Plus system. They look fine. I haven't heard anything about them, and that's my only concern. But there's no sign-up fee, no fee, so it might be worth getting it and testing it out with a few smaller transactions. And if you lose that, no harm, no foul. Well, I mean, a little harm, but very little compared to, oh, someone wanted to buy $1,000 worth of stuff. Oh, now we're messed up. So that might be worth testing out. I've used Square. I've also used PayPal, and both of those seem to be reliable. EMS looks like they have lower fees than those other two, so it's worth a shot. They send you a free reader. So I like the idea that there's more competition because, of course, competition lowers prices, and that's what we're looking for here. Lower prices. So, Brad Weston on CTL, that's the Church Tech Leaders Group at ctl.onthecity.org, asks, yesterday we released Pro Video Player 2, which is a video processing and playback tool designed for what I like to call auxiliary video staging, which led me to the question I'd like to ask of those on here. Does your church use any kind of auxiliary video devices such as plasmas or LCDs or on stage for dynamic visualizations, eye candy, or environmental projection? Basically what I'm asking here is, do you show video on devices that are separate from the standard iMag or main screens? If so, do you do this for a particular sermon series, or are these fixed items? How often do you use them? When do you implement these kinds of things? Who's responsible, the lighting director or a dedicated person? I think it's worthwhile consideration and was curious what people's thoughts were on the subject. Okay, let me take you back a long, long way in time. It was 2002, I think. Yes, I was still in my 20s. So, 2002, yes, my oldest daughter, who is 12 now, was 1 then. That makes sense. So, I was the creative director at a church in Virginia, and for one of our series, we did this exact thing. And so what I did was I collected all the TVs I could find, went to Radio Shack and got a distribution amplifier, because back then none were HD. It was all standard definition. Piled them up on stage, plugged a DVD player in, burned a DVD, put the DVD player in there, and had all these in a pile, all running, all at once, this same thing. That's the budget way to do it. You could do that from a computer and use a distribution amplifier to split the signal, things like that. I think what he's talking about, though, is something more dynamic, and at my current church, which was my church before and church after that church, is we've done this for a couple of different things. We have an LCD that we wheel on stage from time to time to help with the drama. We actually have a third screen in the middle that's part of the set, and it's humongous. Now we use what's it called? It's the Pandora's Box by Kulux, and that is way overkill for what we use. I really wish that they had inspected out. Now at the time it was all that was really available, but you can do all kinds of things with this, and it was one of the most expensive pieces in our setup. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Just keep that in mind. So that's what we use, Pro Video Player. I'd be keen to try. One thing with our setup is we have 2 projectors that are edge blended to cover the entirety of the screen. So that is a limitation that we have personally. But I'd be curious to know what other people are doing as well. Finally, Raymond Burns on the Church Tech Leaders Board said, I've tried to search for it but cannot find any solution. How can I get PowerPoint to a video format? Open source solutions would be best, not necessarily free, but we heavily support open source. So First off, the easiest way is go to File, Export in the PowerPoint menu, and I think on both PC and Mac that's been supported for a few versions. I know the Mac has been able to do it for like a decade, and that's not Mac specific in that Apple did anything. It's that the Microsoft Office team that supports the Mac version of Microsoft Office added that in earlier. So just keep that in mind. So if you've got a particularly old version of Microsoft Office for PC, it may not do it. With that said, there are other ways. So if you took screenshots of each individual slide, let's say that it's just a group of slides cross-dissolving, you could do that, take that into your editor, throw in a cross-dissolve, you're golden. If you have animations, which generally I'm not a huge proponent of some of the crazy animations in PowerPoint, but let's say you had some more subtle ones, or they found this thing online and want to show it, whatever. You could also use screen capture software, run the slideshow and screen cap it that way. That's another option. Let's see here. That might be particularly good, by the way, if you're using something open source instead of PowerPoint, or if, let's say, you're using ProPresenter, which doesn't have that feature to export a presentation as a movie, as far as I know. So that's some of the ways that you can do it. As it turns out, Raymond just hadn't seen that option, so once people pointed it out, he went for it. But I just wanted to mention that just from the standpoint of being able to do it. So, by the way, the other thing is something that I've done more than once is I haven't checked this, that it's still up, but there used to be a website called Zamzar, Zamzar. For those of you in Canada and other English-speaking countries, zamzar.com. And they would do format conversions online. So you upload a file, they convert it, and then you can download it. Very, very helpful way to do things. So Zamzar is a choice, and they can convert from PowerPoint to video. They can also do from an MP4 to an MP3, for example. Of course, you'd lose the video information, but maybe you only want the audio. Things like that. So consider them. So if you have any questions or comments or snide remarks, I suppose, feel free to head over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/contact. I'm on Twitter, of course, at Paul Allen Cliff, PaulAlanclif. This show is recorded live every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. UTC on churchtechcast.com, and there's a live chat room where you can ask your questions. Chris was in there earlier, and he didn't have any questions, but I'm always happy to engage with those. So until next time, I hope that helps you go out and change eternity.